They say innovation moves us forward, but not every gadget from the past was a game changer. The 1970s were a wild time for technology. Some ideas were ahead of their time, others were just plain bizarre, and a few were doomed from the start. Yet every single one of them had its fans. So today we're taking a look at some weird 1970s tech gadgets you've probably never seen before. Starting off with the Coleco Telstar Arcade. This triangle-shaped relic from the 70s resembled a piece of a sci-fi spaceship control panel that a home gaming console.
Start with this roaring road race. Gun the throttle. Faster. A crash.
The gaming equipment was released by Coleco in 1977, just before Cabbage Patch Kids and the ColeVision. The Telstar came with a bizarre triangle shape for good reason. It maximized the use of each side of the triangle with different built-in controllers, giving us 3 different games depending on which one you were in the mood for. You see, instead of changing the game cartridge or discs like we do today, you just rotated the console and you have a different game right in front of you. One part of the console had a steering wheel and gear shifter for racing games, the second had an arcade gun for shooting games, and the third side of the triangle had paddle controllers for classic ping-pong-style games. The Telstar used a massive cartridge that was plugged on top of the machine. The cartridge doubles as storage for games and an upgrading mechanism. The Telstar, though phenomenal, was short-lived as many homes could not afford it, not to mention the limited game selection. The picture phone by Bell Telephone is one gadget that promised to revolutionize communication in the 70s, but things didn't quite go as planned. In the 70s, the idea of video calling was only fiction, until Bell swooped in and designed the first futuristic-looking telephone that was going to allow people to make video calls. It sounded too good to be true, but when Bell Picture Phone Mod 2 launched in 1970, it took the world by surprise. The screen was black and white and the size of a tiny TV. The video quality was grainy, and yet the TV was insanely expensive. If you wanted the picture phone, you had to be rich or be some kind of tech fanatic. To make things worse, monthly subscriptions were $160 monthly, the equivalent of $1,200 today. Very few people were willing to pay that much to see a grainy image of their friends. Though Bell Telephone took a huge loss in sales, the picture phone paved the way for video conferencing in the future. Next is the Panasonic Tootaloop radio, a gadget that looked less like a radio and more like an alien bracelet from a futuristic fashion show. This 1972 gadget was certainly a conversation starter, the weirdest AM radio ever made. While it wasn't certain what the inspiration behind the design was, the plastic loop or donut-shaped radio came in a variety of fun colors and certainly worked as a fashion accessory. You could twist it open to reveal a tuning dial and speaker. It was a tiny portable AM radio, perfect for catching up with the latest tunes or the daily news. But when closed, it reverts to a mystery gadget. It came with a single 9V battery and a headphone jack, allowing teens to listen privately to their late-night rock stations. Panasonic marketed the unconventional design, targeting the youths, who needed a new definition of cool. However, the fragile plastic and limited sound quality didn't do it any favors. While the Bone Phone may not be the most brilliant name for a gadget, this 1979 wearable Bluetooth speaker certainly broke records for its ingenuity. It was the first portable AM/FM radio shaped like a scarf that could be worn around the neck on a cold day. Interestingly, this radio used bone conduction technology to let you feel the music and not just hear it. Yes, you heard right. This gadget sent vibrations through your collarbone, and then your body translates it into sound inside your head. It was designed to create a more immersive private listening experience, rather than speakers near the ear. The Bone Phone uses transducers that transfer vibrations without the need for earbuds. The deep bass and crystal clear sound were quite remarkable. However, it was a bit of a design oddity and was ahead of its time. Though it is a relic today, it remains a bold attempt at a futuristic gadget in its era that perhaps came too early. After the first moon landing of 1969, the space-age design craze began. The JVC Videosphere TV launched in 1970, a portable spherical television shaped like the helmet of an astronaut. It looked like something straight out of 2001's A Space Odyssey. The TV featured a 5-inch black and white screen, an antenna sticking out of the back, and rotary dials for tuning and volume control. It could easily be hung with its metal chain from the ceiling like a funky entertainment pod. It became a staple in music videos, movies, and even pop culture. However, its monochrome display wasn't very fascinating. Its screen was too small, and it was quite expensive, even for a luxury TV. Today, it is a collector's item and shows how big the 70s really dreamed when it came to aesthetics. What you are looking at is the Sony Betamax LV1901, the first ever home video system with a built-in TV. This machine marked the dawn of watching movies on demand from the comfort of your home. Sony introduced the Betamax LV1901, a 19-inch color television featuring a built-in Betamax VCR with a futuristic all-in-one unit that makes TV recording easy for every home. For the first time, people could record shows on various channels and watch them later. This meant no more rearranging viewing schedules. The LV came with better resolution than VHS and also featured instant rewatch power, meaning that you could replay a scene you missed by just rewinding and rewatching. This was a huge deal in the 70s. Some of the LV's setbacks were its short recording time, expensiveness, and eventually the rise of VHS. This is the Hewlett-Packard 9830A, one of the earliest desktop computers, which frankly looked more like a scientific calculator on steroids than the crazy machines we see today. This invention was part of the HP's 9800 series and was actually marketed as a calculator to avoid scaring off businesses who at that time needed something user-friendly. The 9830A was referred to as a self-contained computer because it came with a built-in basic programming language, a typewriter-style keyboard, a built-in thermal printer for output, and a cassette tape that was used as storage to save the programs. It all came at a heavy price tag of about $9,000, which was today's equivalent of $65,000. The HP was the first computer with BASIC and could execute codes directly. It didn't need punch cards, and it could print out results, which was pretty fancy for that era. The machine was so cool, it was adopted for serious scientific and engineering work by NASA. Besides being expensive, the graphics and display were extremely limited. Just a single line of alphanumeric display, so forget about fancy visuals. Also, the cassette storage was too low. Over time, this technology phased out as more user-friendly and faster machines hit the market. How about the Clairtone Project G Stereo? This work of art is designed in Canada by Clairtone Sound Corporation. Project G was a high-end stereo system with a sleek Danish-style wood cabinet and two massive floating speaker orbs on both ends, designed to project sound in all directions. It came with a built-in turntable AM/FM radio tuner and control panel. The Project G Stereo was a luxurious piece mostly found in the homes of stylish elites, such as Hugh Hefner, Frank Sinatra, and others, especially in homes where the host loved to throw swanky cocktail parties in the 70s. Today, it is considered the holy grail of vintage audio equipment for its quality and class. Before LED displays became the norm for clocks, the Nixie tube clock was the coolest way to tell time in the 70s. I mean, warm, glowing numbers floating inside little glass tubes, not to mention its artistic and futuristic arrangement, resembling some form of scientific equipment. The Nixie tubes require high voltage to operate, making them less efficient, not to mention the delicate and fragile glass tubes that could easily break. The biggest downside to the Nixie tube masterpiece was that once a tube burned out, it was almost impossible to replace. By the late 70s, LED displays hit the markets and were cheaper, brighter, and more efficient. Even though Nixie tubes disappeared from mainstream gadgets earlier, they are making a huge comeback among retro enthusiasts, modern DIYers, and especially electronic geeks. Did you know there was a time when movies were dubbed on vinyl records? That was the concept of the RCA Selectavision CED, which was designed in 1978. Before VHS and BETAMAX became a thing, RCA came up with this bizarre design that lets you watch movies by inserting a plastic cartridge into the player, which then read grooves on a large video disc, something like a record player, except with video, of course. The 12-inch diameter vinyl record stored video and audio also. You had to get up and flip the disc over halfway through the movie to be able to continue. RCA started working on the CED format as far back as 1964, but it only hit the markets in 1981. The delay caused the machine to compete with later inventions such as the VHS, which was already dominating the home video scene. It was one of the biggest tech flops in history, losing the company millions of dollars. However, it was a pretty decent attempt to bring movies into homes in a pre-digital era. If you witnessed the 70s, then you're probably familiar with the clap-on, clap-off advert that fascinated the world. The clapper was essentially a sound-activated switch that plugged into your wall outlet. It was the earliest example of voice-activated home automation long before we had Alexa or smart plugs. However, it didn't need any fancy apps or voice recognition. Just a regular human clap. All you had to do was plug the clapper into your switch and then plug devices such as TVs, lamps, and other appliances into the clapper. Whenever you clapped twice, the appliance would come on, and if you clapped twice again, it would go off. The device contained a microphone and a sound sensor that detected rhythmic claps and filtered background noise to better isolate the clap sound. The design had its flaws, as it was often activated accidentally by a sneeze, laughter, a cough, or even the TV playing. In some cases, it would just come on without any trigger, which often frightens people or amplifies superstition. But the clapper remains one of the first consumer-friendly home automation devices. Believe it or not, the clapper is still available in stores to date. Here's something that record collectors cannot do without: a standard disc washer. This cleaning kit wasn't just a regular brush, and you could certainly tell from the texture and quality. It was the ultimate cleaning kit for vinyl discs, and the first line of defense against dust and static. Disc washers became the gold standard, saving discs from skips and crackles. The cleaning solution came in a bottle of D3 and D4, an alcohol-free formula that helped lift grime without altering the delicate surface of the vinyl. People who used the disc washer claimed that it brought very old and scratched records back to life. Surprisingly, the disc washer is still in stores, and why wouldn't it? As long as turntables and vinyl discs are still on the market, they'll always need cleaning. Check out the Mattel Electronics Football Pocket Game, a small LED-based handheld game that kids obsessed over in the 70s. Unlike today's realistic sports simulators with fancy graphics, this game was very simple and consisted only of glowing red blips on the small screen. The Pocket Game was a huge success in its era and sold massively, as competition was very low at that time, and gaming technology was still in its infancy. The game sold out nationwide during the 1977 holiday season, and Mattel struggled to meet growing demands. The game was addictive and even had a cult following that lives for the red blips even to this day. The 70s were a time of technological experiments, and nothing proves that more than the Casio Melody 80 calculator, a pocket-sized gadget that played a tune whenever you pressed a button. The calculator wasn't just for mind-blowing math, it was also a source of entertainment. Casio turned a boring math solution into a musical instrument. The calculator also had built-in music features such as 10 pre-programmed tunes, an alarm feature, and battery-powered beeps. This cutting-edge technology made schoolwork less boring, and kids who could afford them were certainly the coolest in the classroom. Back in the 70s, vinyl was the ultimate source of good music, and while the home turntables were pretty standard, the BSR turntable with built-in mixer was something fresh, exciting, and experimental. The turntable was way ahead of its time, giving DJs and music lovers the ability to mix and scratch long before the culture of turntables even became a thing. BSR, a British company known for its excellent turntables, decided to merge turntables with a mini mixing console, a concept that later exploded and became part of DJ culture. The multifunctional turntable could blend tracks, adjust audio levels, and have multiple inputs for microphones or another turntable. Over time, more complex turntable mixers became available, but we will always remember the first mixer that paved the way for the future of turntables. Early attempts to merge gaming consoles with television led to the manufacture of the Famicom TV by Sharp. The idea was simple. There was no need to own a separate game console. The whole system was built into the TV, and the joysticks had their plugins as well. It easily eliminated clutter and allowed the manufacturers to sell both a television and a game console for a much higher amount. The hybrid was the first of its kind, and although it was a sleek piece of technology and gave gamers a unique gaming experience, it wasn't exactly a commercial success. It did lay the groundwork for future TV console hybrids. It represented a bold leap in retro gaming machines. In the peak of the 70s, multifunctional designs became a trend as people wanted more functionalities from products. The Sanyo RP8880 Lantern Radio was a portable AM/FM radio designed with a built-in lantern-style flashlight. It was great for camping and other activities because it provided entertainment from music stations while lighting up the place. The duality of its use made it more desirable. It came with batteries and featured large speakers with rotary tuners that ensured better sounds and easy station selection. It was a pretty bulky design, and the battery drained fast while running both a radio and lights. It began to phase out with the introduction of newer technologies, but it remains a novelty gadget and a fun part of the 70s. You've seen it in many spy movies. The Nagra SN Spy Recorder is a miniature, high-quality, reel-to-reel tape recorder usually used for covert surveillance, law enforcement operations, and intelligence gathering. The tape was built by the Swiss company Kudelski Group. It measures 5 inches long and 1 inch thick, almost small enough to fit inside a pocket, a boot, AK, or a briefcase. The Negra SN was even used by the CIA, FBI, undercover journalists, and KGB for covert operations during the Cold War to gather secrets. It was durable and could be hidden in bookshelves or plain sight. The earlier versions came with manual controls that could capture conversations clearly, while later versions could be triggered remotely or by sound activation. The reels gave you just 30 minutes of record time, clearly not long enough for lengthy surveillance operations. It was certainly one of the coolest gadgets of its era, a small piece of espionage history. Who needs logic and responsibility when you have the executive decision maker? It may seem a little irresponsible, but you could leave all your important decision-making to a battery-powered desk toy made around 1971. This gadget is the digital version of flipping a coin and is quite similar to the Magic 8-Ball but in a fancy executive package. Designed with a wood grain, this desk gadget has a set of answers to any question you might have. It follows the premise that executives answer tough questions with simple, straightforward answers that decide the fate of any person or thing. Depending on the model of the executive decision maker, the answers may include basics such as yes, absolutely, no way, never, go for it, sleep on it, and try again later. It was the perfect tool in the 70s for those who were caught in a crossroad and didn't want the responsibility of making a decision. But on the lighter side, it made a great game and the perfect pastime entertainment. Also, the perfect gift for bosses and managers. The decision maker wasn't always reliable, but no one expected it to be, as it was just a toy, or did they? If you were wondering what personalized music was like in the 70s while taking a ride in your vehicle, then wonder no more. The Ford car recorder player was a master of in-car entertainment, allowing you play vinyl records rather than depend on your AM/FM radio. The recorder player was a built-in device mounted on the dash console. Ford was ahead of the curve with this new futuristic design, and many people were amused with the idea of music in cars. Even though the design was a bit awkward, this was all before cassettes were manufactured, of course. The biggest problem this novelty had was the skipping, caused by vibrations while the car was in motion, especially when the car hit a bump or a porthole. Later versions featured heavier needles that were supposed to keep the vinyl discs in place, but the heavy needles destroyed the vinyl instead. It was simply one bad experiment. The player provided travelers with 45 minutes of audio on each side of the vinyl, which wasn't a lot, especially for long distances. Over time, the recorder player slowly phased out as cassettes and CD players took over the market. Today, the Ford car recorder player is more of a rare collector's item, reminding us of the ambitious technologies of the 70s. Which of these gadgets did you own? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you get notified on our next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.